is a constitutional monarchy and is the remaining island kingdom in the South Pacific. The only Pacific island that was never colonized is located between New Zealand and Fiji. With a population of about 193,000, the South Pacific island nation is comprised of 176 islands, of which 36 are inhabited. Tonga comprises of 5 main island groups. While over 1 million confirmed death cases of COVID-19 and over 39 million confirmed cases reported worldwide, Tonga is very fortunate and privileged to remain a COVID-19 free country. This is thanks to the guidance and protection of our Almighty God. As the world continues to grapple with the coronavirus pandemic, Tonga is facing another unprecedented challenges, including public health, food security, climate change, and sea level rising, among other issues.
Tonga, of course, is the second in the world to a country vulnerable to the natural disaster, and that is caused by the climate change. And of course, in Tonga, you can see sea rise level erosion in the coastal area, and that is a very big problem, especially in a lowland island like Tonga. At the moment, the annual sea level rising is about 6 millimeter a year, which is well above the global average. I believe this current pandemic is a problem, of course. Right now, we can see that about 1 or 2 years from now, we may have a vaccine to control the pandemic, but the climate change issues and difficulties will be facing it for the next 50 to 100 years from now. The sea level rising, all the coastal areas is affected. There are 2 islands we can see on our way to Eua, to the south, to the island of Eua. There were 2 islands that should be standing outside from the ocean. There is already disappeared. One is Monuafe, is already gone. That's the effect of the sea level rising. It affects our tourism. It also affects our agriculture and also the people that live close to the sea.
According to UNFCCC, Tonga has been identified as second to Vanuatu with the highest risk to natural disasters and the unfolding effects of climate change. The changing in the weather patterns and the impacts of El Niño have led to more frequent Category 3 and 4 tropical cyclones hammering and battering Tonga this year and the past years. Tongans are now experiencing its impacts with increased intensity of tropical cyclones and sea level rise.
Ko ene hake me koe tahi mau nofo pehe tahi. Oku au katoa peku mo mai mau mea I pesi mai o fokia te tahi. Ko ne mamaha pe tahi mau matu. Ko ne hake me pe tahi mau nofo pehe tahi. I taimi koe na e ikai ke ia mea pehe e mau nofo I apini. Ka ki taimi ni mau nofo pehe tahi. Ko ne hake pe tahi mau nofo whare. Ko ne mamaha pe tahi mau hu mai ki tua. Mo mea I pehe mo hu mai koe. Ko mau tuanga whare koe whahai koe ki tahi o sono kai he tahi. Malo pe tahi, malo hao pe hono tanu ke mau kei tua ai ka pate mo mea I hake pe ke anga tu mai koe mau whare. Hake mai pe tahi. Taimi koe nai tō mai ai a whaa. Mau te ko tu ke tu mau. Foto tu unga hake mai pe tahi o mau no foi pe mate ai pe kai ke
Ko le tu ko te pili ku e sia la ya pita. Ko una ko. Ko tahi ko pelo. Ke ta waki mo tahi ko. Ko le tu ya e te pili ku e sia la ya pita.
On the 12th of February 2018, a Category 4 tropical cyclone Gita battered the island groups and left severe damage here on the main island, Tonga and Ewa. Almost 2,000 homes were damaged. The storm affected about 80,000 people, or about 80% of Tonga's population. Destruction includes severe damages to schools, public building, and also 150-year-old Parliament building. Tonga was the hardest hit during Tropical Cyclone Gita. In January this year, another Category 3 Tropical Cyclone Tino affected the Tonga group, with the coastal areas the hard hit by storm surges. 3 months later, on April 9, 2020, another very powerful tropical cyclone Harold hit Tonga again, bringing widespread damages to the island groups. Local residents of Batangata coastal area were also victims of the past powerful cyclone that brought. Batangata coastal area were among the worst hit during Tropical Cyclone Harold. Local residents share experience of ordeal during the recent disaster.
Ko e kau mo ngai ap no whanga I he wesia mo ya. Ngai ap no whanga e tōko ni matangi wha ocean nei ai mau koe ni. Na e tuu he ngai loto whan. Nionga ni maalonga kou whare ko o tupiri ke tolu ki olong. Whawa e nau pe ko whawa e maalonga taha e nau whai kou whare. Ko ngā ki solo wake palopare ma koe ni maulalo koe ni ai. Na ea upe o tuu I loto whare ne ngā tahutui ai maalonga e tahi I loto. Au pe te ke whiunga ngā we ke whai kou whare ke malu muhau whamiri.
Na e lahe au pita ngahi apia na e hake peta hia o alupe wa uki loto maari. Na e kei te lawa no koe ngahi apia I lalo na e hu peta hia me ngai loto whare o whialua ki peta hia ngai loto whare. Mahalo na mu kau pe he lawa mai he pongpongi koe hiri koe halo ti. Na e kai pete lawa pononga mai he halapure anga tatau pe ia he ngai mea lere koe I koe ngai maka koe mene one mi tahi koe tua posoa koe ki tahi. Na e tāpune ki pe halapure anga. Koe uesia ia koe ai noko koe a patangata nifu e tūlawe anga pua koe ngai ta whakai nā tūla. Koe mga moi whakai ki mipo nuani ku mau pe mitai. Pe sete hiwa nima, koe mga moi ku mau e mitai. Pe au ku e taimi o ku hoko mai ngai pa ngai ta whakai nā tūla. Oku ne hanga uesia. Ai mau moi koe kakai. Osi mahi nā e ua pe tolu. Pe tu whakake ake rewa tu ngā mga moi whakai tau tai koe kakai he nau. Kanga koe no whakai koloni ku mahino pe ia he taimi pe riwaka e ia. Kau o tuipe o koe peke hapu. Ngata penga I penga ta wai na tūra o ne wesi alahi anga no po me hake matu ko ni wai tahi mi he tahi me tapa.
On April 8th, Tongan government declared a state of emergency for the preparedness and response to Tropical Cyclone Harold. Tourism was also worse hit. While local tourism operators were recovering from COVID-19, Tropical Cyclone Harold storm surge also triggered a king tide, which brought severe damages. Bakaloa and Liku Alofa beach resorts on the western coast of Tongatapu. Damages were estimated at about 10 million per annum.
Yonga put ka ki mauto ka kwale business resort mau tau pia mo to ko ko ni Bakaloa ba pe ga tap ye mau tofu hia ye mau ko ni fai ko ni haloti. Pero mau lahi ia ko tume mau lahi ia ko taimi ta tau ai hua tau ai tai pe mo foi taimi na e ofita mai ai ai fa ki Tonga ni. Pene fu malonga tai ko mau tau le na e ma hola ma to o hau ya hau kono hinga ene hange na alfa suna me tai. Pena ya nge pe ki mau tau mau me o ngoi de mau mele mo foi pe au mau hola le mau tolo o feinga o hao kia hao. Ka koe whakatu tāma ka hutu mana kai peki te lawa te wha. Ngau e mai ke whakahao whia mea lere. Mau mau e u mea lere. Pia kai ki ngatai u whare koe ni koe tau le tū mene whe. ko a fa ko to be ko ke mau ia ke ha me tahi lahi pe o kai pe ke ha mai ke u pare ko to ki sio ne ko mata ki a fa a lahi ke ngatai ka ko tahi lahi fa uia ene alo wa ki mui a tahi lahi ko ngai mau ia ko ni ko ko ni ko ngawe to ko ni tahi ko no fangalo kulo mono we fare pa tu ka be matangi o hiki ori ki mui ka ko mau ia ko ngawe lo be a fa pe me tai lai.
As you can see, small island states like Tonga is highly vulnerable to climate change and sea level rising, especially Ha'apai. The main wharf in Ha'apai for a causeway and the Holobeka Road, which were damaged during Tropical Cyclone Tino, have suffered major damages again during Tropical Cyclone Harold too. The former governor of Ha'apai and the current MP of Ha'apai 12, Honourable Mo'alifi, now shares with us his experience on climate change issue.
All of the islands in Ha'apai are affected because of the negative impact of climate change. And Ha'apai Islands, as I have mentioned, because Ha'apai is the most low-lying islands all over in the Kingdom of Tonga. So because of the very low, of the islands of Ha'apai, that means most of the coastlines, the coastal areas, they are mostly affected because of sea level rise. Most of the little islands in Ha'apai are affected, especially towards the coastal area, the coastlines, as I have mentioned. The beach area are being eroded. So I think on that note, the Ha'apai Islands is the most vulnerable islands to climate change. So I can say that the Lifuka Island, the main island of Ha'apai, as well as the other bigger islands like Nomuka and Ha'awhiwa, as well as the little islands, they are affected mostly. The coastline, as I have said, all the coastlines of these little islands are being eroded. Should be a priority for Tonga. I can say that the coastline of all the islands in Ha'apai are being affected. So we have to focus on building, for instance, like seawalls and retaining walls. I'm sure there are different kinds of protection that can be erected to protect the coastlines of these little islands. So these are the main areas that are being affected.
As you will be aware, climate change has affected the whole world, especially the change in sea level. And there's no other place to demonstrate this impact on small islands than here we are in Lifuka. Right in front of the governor's house, you can see that the sea has overran the protection right at the front. All the trees and coconuts are being removed. Back in 2006, there was an earthquake, which we have collected some data that indicates that the western portion of the coastline of Lifuka has subsided by around about 23 centimeters. However, in that period, and just listening to people, this island has been undergoing severe erosion for a long time.
Ai tahi nai tu tahi ke laine ko ba tai mi nai hokoi ko e tai mi ko nai hokoi tsunami na ha ke me be tsunami o ha ke me akai ha ke be u la matapa o fonu kere ai loto fale mana e inise taha ma lo e kere ospeko ya be hoko mai ai foi matangi o kamatai ni wesia lahi ko ai whare mo e kamatai pene hao e tahi koe ke te whoki. Kusai e ofa ko ia e whetongi i kere kere. O i ngā e kuseifi angeke mo ui kone ku kaureka mo mautolu ko. O i ngā ku kono mo onina ma o hiki koe ki olunga. Ta e ori whoku wanga he nofu matatahi. Ka kono mo oni o naia. Toki ope o nofo ki he o ma kono whalatava.
The Ha'apai 12th MP, Honourable Mo'ale Finau, also talks more about the impacts on the agriculture sector and fisheries.
There is a decrease in agricultural production simply because I believe it is being affected in a way by climate change. I can conclude that there is a decrease in the level of food production. So I can predict that if going forward now, the food level, the food production, the yield of food crops, so they are all going down, as far as the yield is concerned.
The government of Tonga understands the detrimental impacts of climate change includes increased temperature and atmospheric and sea surface temperature, increased intensity of tropical cyclones, heavy rainfall, sea level rise, inland and coastal inundation.
In this rather survival course against climate change over the years. In 2015, the European Union provided 1.3 million pa'anga for the construction of the Coastal Protection Trials Project in eastern Tongatapu. Today, another milestone has been achieved from this close collaboration with the European Union, which they have kindly again contributed 1.3 million pa'anga towards this project. This project also achieved other significant milestones that include installation of 1 kilometer fence along the entire coast of Ahau to avoid roaming pigs from destroying the newly planted mangroves. Construction of trial timber growing along the coastline of Kolowai to reduce the amount of seagrass reaching the shoreline and thus increase the natural settlement and growth of mangroves along the shoreline. Refilling some of the properties at the project site in Kolowai that are always under water at rainy seasons. Building 5 mangrove nurseries and planting 5 hectares of mangroves and coastal plants in 6 communities. Training of the community women and youth groups in coastal protection, leadership, mangrove propagation and planting techniques. Training of selected government officials, focusing on natural-based monitoring and evaluation techniques. Coastal awareness, coastal cleanup, and environmental protection activities at local schools, and establishment of a HIFO Coastal Committee to empower partnership between government and the communities in addressing coastal hazards and mitigation measures.
Government is currently working closely with the development partners to continue constructing these foreshores for the worst affected areas due to climate change. We have already received funding again from the European Union for a study and design the seawall protection for the northern part of Tongatapu, starting all the way from New Toa down here to Ha'atafu, which will start in the next couple of months. Then construction will begin once funding has been secured. The outer islands will follow next. Many challenges of climate change, including sea level rise and coastal erosion, which of considerable concern to us all, given that most of our communities and villages are situated in the low-lying coastal areas. The Hihifo coastal communities are among the most vulnerable due to low elevation, proximity to the sea, storm surge, and flooding, especially when tropical cyclones hit. This is why I am grateful for this project. At least this foreshore and seawall will provide some of protection to your coastlines, land, properties, and livelihood. This project also promotes using of nature-based solutions, like planting of mangroves to provide a second line of defense behind the foreshore. Using nature-based solutions to combat the adverse impacts of climate change is easier, cost-effective, and providing healthier environment of biological diversity, especially the marine life. The design faced extensive consultation with local communities and compliance with environmental impact assessment, which all involve community members in decision-making processes, are good practice experiences and sense of local ownership of this project. With that said, on behalf of the government, I would now like to officially commission the Ahau foreshore and the Kolowai seawall as an important step toward building Tonga's resilience to climate change. Malo pito.
Natural disasters have proven a major setback to government's efforts to ensure increased local produce and production and also food security. In efforts to reduce damages to infrastructure and buildings, Tonga government has enforced its building code law to ensure climate proofing of buildings to cope with climate change and sea storm surges.
Natural disaster like cyclone is more frequent now, like Kita and Herod, and also the intensity is very strong right now. So what the government policy is they are building when they their recovery program. They have to improve the building code. They try to get finance to build seawall and also educate the people to protect the way they behave, to protect the environment. So those are the policy, but to build, when they build back better, to be resilient to the climate change effect for the future. At the moment, we are just trying to recover from the damages caused by the cyclone Kita. This is more than 2 years now. We have not completed built the houses.
The government of Tonga understands that climate change not only affects the people worldwide, but also us, the people here in Tonga. Media plays a significant role in educating the public and raising public awareness on climate change issues. The Media Association of Tonga was founded in 2018 at the Pina Summit, which was hosted here in Tonga. As Tonga is highly at risk to the impacts of climate change, the Honourable Prime Minister urges the people to stand together and to work collaboratively during this period.
We have seen the impact of the climate change, and I think we should not be nervous about it. We keep our faith. Our faith will keep us strong, and we can meet those challenges and be able to stand up and think properly, as we still have our Lord. He will not leave us.
And the rest of the world to save Tonga from sinking.
If our elders don't start thinking, our generation will start sinking.